Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSat Network. Friend, today we are going to discuss a very important topic, the changing paradigm of society. We'll try to understand what is the meaning of paradigm and what is how it is connected in sociology, and what is the paradigm shift has been found in the sociological discipline and how it evolved over the years. We'll try to understand the different aspects, and starting from the agrarian to right now our network society, will try to see the historical dimension, historical aspect which have contributed and helped in evolving the new society, you can say a network society. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio Dr. Manoj Jena. He teaches sociology, Department of Sociology in Jamia Millia Islamia University, and he has published 2 books and a number of articles in referred and non-referred journals. So I think his knowledge and experience will help us to understand this topic and will give insight to understand the changing paradigm. So firstly, we'll try to understand what is the paradigm meaning, and then we'll try to understand the paradigm shift and other concepts. So on your behalf, I welcome him for the EduSat lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Amaradanji. It's a great honor for me to be part of CEC, and thank you very much inviting me again. So as he has rightly talked about, that we are going to discuss the changing paradigm of sociology or society in general, and we'll discuss something about changing paradigm of sociology in particular. So broadly we are trying to understand and we'll have an important engagement with the different paradigms. What are the paradigms we have in sociology, and more or less we'll also try to understand that what kind of relationship we have with the paradigm as such, when we're talking about agency, when we're talking about actor, when we're talking about community as such. And when we're talking about paradigm, and essentially we are tracing this in connecting this concept with Thomas Kuhn's idea of paradigm. And he was an important social scientist who has developed this concept of paradigm, and he has used this concept of the paradigm when we are trying to analyze the scientific revolution. In his book, what we call the structure of scientific revolution, where he has extensively talked about the idea of paradigm and idea paradigm shift, and as such. So when we are talking about paradigm, let's talk about the then talk about the idea of.
You can continue, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So he argues that he argues that the it's a kind of, when we're trying to understand the idea of the paradigm, it's absolutely it's a disciplinary matrix. It's a kind of what he called, it's a disciplinary matrix, and he also conceptualizes in that it's it's also what he called the some take issues of this definition. He's arguing about the disciplinary matrix, and he also says that the Kuhn also defined the paradigm as a exemplar, and that is the concerned solution to the specific scientific problems or puzzles. And when it's arguing this kind of, when it's putting this kind of argument, essentially he is talking about the scientific revolution. Then let's talk about a paradigm in sociology or or sociological paradigm. Then the concept of the scientific paradigm and particularly the sociological paradigm is also closely connected to the sociological theory. because you see the many people, they have also influenced by the Thomas Kuhn's idea, and here we are also talking about the idea of the paradigm. And now let's connect this idea of the paradigm with the sociological theory. And when we're talking about what you call that and the scientific paradigm, when arguing about that, represents a general hypothesis of scientific knowledge, a general knowledge which can be presented both as a practical one as well as the specific matrix of scientific research. Essentially, he was talking about scientific research, where he's also talking about scientific practice, or scientific what you call the matrix. And he is also talking about the scientific paradigm is a set of facts and convictions which is systematically present, that is presented as a theory, whose function is to initiate theoretical procedures and practical research in certain field thereafter, so that it appears in this sense as a source of some future or already existing social theoretical composition. In accordance to that, when I'm talking about that, the sociological paradigm represent a fundamental illustration of the society, and which has been more or less accepted in association of sociologists during certain period of this science of development. Here, that means what we are analyzing is that we have to understand that the people, those who are associated with different kind of paradigm with a different period of history. And the sociological paradigm performs significant function in sociological analysis. This is another important part of our discussion. And according to Robert K. Morton in his 1979, at least he argues that at least 5 functions of a paradigm in sociology may be specified. When he's talking about the different kind of paradigm, when we're trying to understand the sociology, and he argues that at least 5 functions of the paradigm may be specified. Number 1, he argues the function of defining a concept. Number 2, the function of decreasing a probability of unconscious introduction of latent assumptions and concepts. Number 3, the function of accumulating theoretical interpretations, and the function of concept systematization, and the function of qualitative analysis codifications. And when he's talking about that, he argues that the function of the paradigm in sociology is to provide precise in the designating and central concept of sociological analysis, and it can almost be compared to the significance and functions of mathematical symbols in the natural sciences. Moreover, the paradigm implies logical concept derivations from previously clearly defined concepts. And second, he is also talking about the accumulation of the theoretical interpretation in sociological paradigm enables new theoretical attitudes to be derived from the supported by the previous one, producing coherent theoretical structure. In case the fundamental paradigms assumes are weak, new theoretical statements cannot be withstand theoretical and empirical verification. Again, he's also talking about the paradigms may initiate the systematization of significant concepts, as well as point out the need of empirical and theoretical investigation of certain problems. And paradigms also contribute to certain codification and unification of procedures in partial and global researches. In this respect, in the frame of sociology, we may find old sociological paradigm and new sociological paradigms also, which mutually differ with regard to the theories, method, and instruments applied in learning about social totality. According to Miroslav's Fesujeli, is of his opinion that the old classical sociological paradigm pervades classical sociological theories and so-called objective theories, positivism, functionalism, system theories, and structuralism. And if you see that the whole idea of the paradigm, in one hand, the many people, they are influenced by the paradigm. Morton is also talking about that. In mid 1970s, it was an important phase in our sociological theorizing, when the paradigm concept was at the height of influence. Absolutely, many people, they have also influenced by the this kind of ideas. And sociology was characterized by the three basic paradigms, that the social facts, social definitions, and the social behavior paradigm. So that means one paradigm we have social facts, then number two is the social definition, and the social behavior paradigm. These differ fundamentally in their image of the subject matter of sociology, with the social facts paradigm focusing on the large scale social structure and institutions. So that here we are trying to differentiate in between different kind of paradigms, right? The number one is we're talking about the social facts paradigm, focusing on the large scale social structures and institutions. The social definition paradigm, the way people construct their social world and act and interact on the basis of those constructions, and the social behavior paradigm on the behavior that is less dependent on social construction. Given these differences in image of the subject matter, adherents of each paradigm have different exemplars. What Thomas Kuhn is talking about here, defined as a orientation and bodies of work that serve as icons and model for practitioners, which within each paradigm. Whatever paradigms we have I have talked about the three important paradigms. One is the social facts paradigms, social definitions paradigm, then social behavioral paradigms. So these are the three important paradigms what you have. So then, if you to the social factist is the work is associated with the Emile Durkheim, who has created the term social fact. To the social definitionist is that the Max Weber on a social action, and to the social behaviorist is that the work of prominent psychological behaviorist is the B.F. Skinner. Based on these differences in the image of the subject matter and the exemplars, those within each paradigm tend to be developed and use different methods and theories that fit best with the image of what is to be studied and with the basic orientation of the exemplars. What Thomas Kuhn is talking about. Thus, sociology tended to be characterized by the three distinct paradigms, each with its own set of images, exemplars, theories, and methods. So these paradigms tended to be deeply at odds with one another, questioning each other's focus and most basic assumptions. So that means they have trying to interact with themselves. The paradigms, it tells the one paradigm is also interacting with another paradigm. And then again, after talking about that, if we'll discuss something about the philosophical tradition of sociology or philosophical tradition of paradigm of sociology, so then again we have a three philosophical tradition on the basis of that analysis. When we have a tradition of structural functionalism, what we call the consensus, which is important, which we are talking about. We have a Emile Durkheim, we have a Robert K. Morton, we have a Parson. All these people, they are associated with structural functional paradigm. Then we have a Marxism. Marxism in a sense, we have a Karl Marx. We are stressing the idea of the Marxism from the Karl Marx, where we have a conflict paradigm, conflict traditional paradigm. Then we have a third is that symbolic interactionism, where we have a Blama, we have a many people are associated with the Alfred Soos and so on and so forth. So the structured functionalism focuses on how society is organized and how social institutions meet the needs of the people living within collectivity. This is the important part of that what you call the functionalism, structural functional paradigm. The Marxian paradigm guides inquiries into the use and misuse of the power within across the social system. This idea of the conflict is is very important over here. Then the second, the idea of consensus is also very important for the structural functionalism. And symbolic interactionism focuses on how individuals influence and are influenced by society. It's a kind of what you call the interconnected. They have a very strong connection in between the individual in one hand as well as the society at large. It guides the investigations in how the rules of society are recreated every day through our interaction with one another. So one has to understand the which way we are interacting with one another. This is an important part of symbolic interactionism paradigm. So let's extensively talk about structural functionalism paradigm. The structural functionalism relies upon the organic analogy of human society as being like an organism, a system of dependent parts that function for the benefit of the whole. It's a kind of consensus. It's a consensus. Thus, just as a human body consists of the parts that function as an interdependent system of survival of the organism, society consists of system of interdependent institutions and organizations that function for the survival of the society. That means we can say it's a absolutely, if you're talking about whole, you have to talk about the parts, and the part and whole, they are very much interconnected with each other, and they are absolutely interdependent with each other. So the second is that the relying upon the success of the biologist in understanding the human body, functionalists like the similar approach to understanding human social system. And here they have many, the structural functionalists, they have also influenced by, biologists. And here, when they're talking about system, whether biology, they are talking about biological system. Here we are talking about a sociological system. The social system or a social system is, is connected with a part as well as the whole. The parts are the institutions, family, education, economy, polity, and religion, and these parts were examined to find out how they worked and their importance of the larger social system. The rationale was that if scientists could understand how institutions worked, then their performance could be optimized to create an efficient and productive society. This is a kind of paradigm to understand something about the society. And through this particular paradigm, what we call the structural functional paradigm, we are trying to understand what kind of relationship we have. With one hand, we have a part and whole relationship, which way we are interdependent with each other. This approach has proved to be very successful in the predominant philosophy guiding macro level sociology. Even today also we are trying to utilize as a macro level. Then the second idea we have, what we call the structural functionalism, arose in part of a reaction to the limitation of the utilitarian philosophy, where the people were viewed as strictly rational, calculating entrepreneurs in free, open, unregulated and competitive marketplace. The tenet of functionalism and the fundamental building block of all sociology is that people behave differently in groups than they do as individuals. The group have lives of their own, so to speak, or the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which is a very, very important component of what you call the structural functionalism paradigm. What you call the whole is greater than sum of the parts. Anyway, the point is that just as the invisible hand of order can be guide economic relations, social forces can be guide social relations. Thus, yield of society very positive outcome of voluntarism, democracy, law, moral, ethical standard for the behavior of the family and educational system, community, and very negative outcome of discrimination, organized crime, moral decay, and welfare and poverty. So, functionalism always, the structural functional paradigm always trying to understand the idea of the consensus, idea of the order, and so on and so forth. The idea of the functionalist was create a science of society that could examine the parts of human social systems and make them work for the betterment of all. And it is the task of sociologists to use scientific principle to help create a best form of society possible. This is the idea of what we call structural functionalism paradigm. So then we can come to what we call the Marxism. Before that, we have an idea of what we call, when we're talking about social system, we have a 4 key idea, which is the Talcott-Parsons idea of the adaptation, goal attainment, and integration and latency. where he's talking about social action takes place as a dynamic equilibrium within the social system of cultural norms and institutional structure. Then directly, then we'll discuss the second paradigm we have, what you call the Marxism, and this we are connecting Marxism with Karl Marx. And according to this Marxism, paradigm, society as a system, of competing parts in conflicting of scarcity resources, because you don't have enough resources. One hand we have a tiny minority, and of a particular class, they are controlling all the resources. We have some other people, those who are not part and parcel of this accumulation of resources or utilization of resources. So therefore is some kind of conflict is occurring. From the perspective of, or from the paradigm of the Marxism, the fundamental processes of society are competition and conflict rather than cooperation for the good of whole. So that means you can see it's a what you call, it's opposite to the structural functional paradigm we have, where it's talking about, here we are not talking about consensus, rather than we're talking about conflict. Conflict is a important determinant for us to understand the societal conditions. And therefore, if you see, all social systems have small minorities of powerful elites. What the Marxian, the Karl Marx is talking about, that's a bourgeoisie, and we have one hand we have a bourgeoisie, the other part we have a proletariat. So they have a constant conflict is happening in between these two groups. So, and he's also trying to understand the social action. He's talking about the social action takes place within an arena of conflict and exploitation between the dominant and secondary segment of the society. One hand, some people they are dominating. The other hand, these are some people they are exploited, they are controlled and regulated by this tiny minority of the society. Those are called the bourgeoisie. And again, he's also, when we're trying to understand this paradigm, the Marxian dialectical materialism is also important determinant to understand that. To understand Marxian social philosophy, it is instructive to review its underlying principle, which is dialectical materialism. The dialectics consists of the three parts. The number one is the thesis. The thesis is something is the status quo of our current understanding of reality. Whatever reality we have in the society, this is all about. He's talking about the thesis. The antithesis is a contradiction to the status quo, or to recognize flow of our current understanding about reality. What kind of current understanding of reality we have regarding that in that particular society. And the synthesis is suggested the alternative to the status quo, or an improved understanding about the reality. It's a kind of alternative, providing kind of alternative to the existing reality. In one sense, we can say the dialectic refer to the inherent inevitable conflict. Thus, citizen must inevitably, wrestle within the society as it is. They recognized flaws in the society and suggest alternative for an improved society. In another sense, the dialectic is a method for achieving progress. The citizens can use the dialectic way of thinking to constantly improve society by recognizing and attempting to overcome its flaws. So that means, in a sense, what the Marxian paradigm is putting his argument in one hand. You see, we have to understand the thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis. You have to understand the present condition of the society, and you see what kind of connection you have with the reality, and you can also see what kind of contradictions we have, and we can also what kind of alternative available with us. This is also very important when we're trying to understand the present society or any kind of society historically. Then if you see Karl Marx also focus on the material condition, which is another important for him. He's talking about the food, clothing, housing, access, healthcare, and education. This is also very important, material conditions. And many critical sociologists and the contemporary sociologists also, they are influenced by the Marxian ideology, what you call the material conditions of the Marxian ideology. For Marx, the dialectic represented inherent conflict between the means and the relations of production. Owners were focused to exploit labor to achieve the competitive edge over their rival in the capitalist economy, but in the process destroyed the very source of their profit, labor. So is in a sense we are also trying to understand the people, those who are associated with this activities like the labor force. Essentially is talking about the capitalist order. In the one hand we have a capitalist, those who are controlling the resources, those are controlling the money, those are controlling the capital, and the another hand we have a labor force. They are exploited, they are controlled, regulated by this tiny minority of bourgeoisie class. So this is the interesting paradigm to understand the contemporary issue as well. So again, when Marx is also talking about the idea of the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, is also talking about thesis is the means of production for him, antithesis is the relations of productions, and synthesis is the communism. What are the alternatives we have? Marx is putting it's a kind of alternative idea. We have what he call the communism. And then third paradigm we have what we call the symbolic interactionism. From the perspective of the symbolic interactionism, the society is in constant state of recreation through interactions and negotiation of meanings. Meanings is also very important. Whether we are creating meanings through the different kind of symbolic interactions, or whether it is a verbal, non-verbal, different kind of communication patterns we have. The meaning is also very, very important to understand within this kind of paradigm. We created the rule we live by, and importantly we recreate the rule every day through our interactions with one another. Mostly societies are conservative with respect to the social change, but are redefining of a symbolic meaning. If you see, in many ways we are also talking about, we are also protecting ourselves for, we are not allowing for some kind of change. But it's also important for us to understand what kind of rules we have, what are the rules we are creating, how we are recreating the rules. This is happening through the constant interaction with one hand with the individual as an actor, or individual, or as a important player in a society. So then here, when we're talking about symbolic interactionism paradigm, the symbolic meaning we attach to the things or event is also very, very important. And our sense of morality and ethics is also another important determinant. What sense of morality we have, what kind of ethics we have, because it's also connect us with the idea of the socialization pattern, the idea of the culture, in which way we are imbibing different kind of values, norms, from one generation to the other generation. That is also helping us to develop some kind of idea of the morality and ethics. And again, the third point is that what we choose to the value have important implications for the rule we create and the way we choose to live with one another. Then it's also very important to understand what kind of value what kind of value we have created for us, and why we are changing that particular value. And many times we are also arguing that whatever values you have, whatever conditions we have to understand according to that context. The context is also very important. We have a context, text is and pretext is also very important to understand the values, understand in culture, so and so forth. Then again, the reality is also, when we're talking about the reality, the present social reality, that reality is socially constructed through the interaction with one another, right? That what kind of, whatever interaction we have, when we're talking about the changing paradigm, this is also very much connected with what kind of interaction we have with the situations, with the conditions, different kind of conditions and different kind of determinants. And therefore I have already talked about the morality, ethics, value are also influenced by the pattern of interaction and pattern of communication what we have. Another social action is also influenced by the people's beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, and negotiation of meanings. Social action, what the Weber is also talking about. Many people, they have also talked about, Blummer and all these people, they are also talking about the different kind of social actions. It's also influenced by the person's beliefs, attitude, perceptions, and negotiation of meaning. And again, the status also. Status means the position of the society. This is another important factor. to understand, according to the people, you can interact with another, individuals, or when you are playing a set of roles according to the particular status, because we are, as an individual, we are playing multiple, roles, as a father, as a director of institutions, or as a worker of a factory, or as a, player of an actor, and a player of a cricket team, and so we are playing multiple roles, and the status is also connected with that, and also the behavioral expectation is also associated with the status. When I'm playing different kind of roles, and the behavioral, expectations are also associated with that, with the status, and therefore we have a looking glass self theory to understand that. And then again, the socialization process, which is also another important component of this particular paradigm, and through that you can also see that what kind of, transformation is happening in the society, what kind of changes is happening in the society. It's a learning of societal rules, because rules varies to place, circumstances to circumstances, context to context. This is also another important component of our, social interaction paradigm. Then, as well as the internalization. Internalization is also connected with what you called the process of socialization, because we are imbibing different values, different norms, and so on and so forth. Then again, after talking about these three important, paradigms, what you have, structural functional paradigm, we have a Marxian paradigm, and as well as a social interaction. See, presently the field has changed. The field has changed. The sociology paradigmatic status has quite different from today, because if you see the values, norm, in the technological development, in the pattern of communication is absolutely transformed, and we have invented very many important things. Some of the new scientific development has occurred. So then again, one can say it's a kind of some kind of paradigm shift has occurred, right? The paradigm concept is if you see, is a shift has occurred. When we're talking about the paradigm shift, again we'll go back to the Thomas Kuhn's idea of what you call the scientific revolution, and let's understand what do we mean by the paradigm shift. Paradigm shift basically a movement away from old explanations, so that no longer explain the reality, resulting in a redefinition of taken for granted boundaries due to the emergence of the new model or a way of thinking, valuing, and perceiving the world. So what we are talking about, the context, now we are living in a new context. We are in a phase of what we call in a 21st century, where the knowledge is also very important. We have a different kind of open access development, scientific development, and as well as the development is happening in many areas, in technologies, communication, so on and so forth. So therefore, so here we have a different kind of explanation. It's a different kind of depth. We'll discuss that over here. The paradigm shift is a change from one way of thinking about a particular subject to another way of thinking about it. Thomas Kuhn defined and popularized the concept in his work of Structure of Scientific Revolution, where he's talking about that the Kuhn argues, and I quote, that the scientific achievements is not evolutionary, but rather it is a series of peaceful interludes, punctured by intellectually violent revolution. When he's talking about intellectually violent revolution, he's putting it in a positive way. And those revolution, one conceptual worldview is replaced by the another. This is a very important idea for us. That means the one conceptual worldview is replaced by other. So through that perspective, we'll see that what kind of new paradigms we have in sociology. So again, think of paradigm shift as a change from one way of thinking to another. It's a revolution. It's a transformation. When we're talking about new kind of paradigm, it's maybe a revolution. It's a transformation. It's sort of metamorphosis. It just does not happen, but rather it is driven by the agents of change. And we have to also understand different agents of this change. It's not happened, spontaneously, but we have to number of agents of change. Technology can be one of important agent. Communication can be an important agent. Different kind of discoveries of different kind of agent. So when we're trying to understand the paradigm shift, for instance, we have example, the agriculture changed, early primitive society. We have a shift from the primitive society to the agricultural society. Then primitive Indian existed for the centuries, roaming the earth costly hunting and gathering for the seasonal foods, water for the 2000 VC. Now the shift from the pastoral society, or what you call the pre-agricultural society, to the agriculture society. Then we have another development which has happened, the Copernican system, what you call the idea of the science, idea of the universe. Again, we had a Newtonian physics to relativity and quantum physics. That's a shift. That's an important shift. Thomas Kuhn also highlighted this kind of development, in which way the paradigm has also moved from one place to the other place. Both all these movements, all these kind of, if you include all these movements, this eventually changed the worldview. That means it's a kind of what you call, it has impact on our thinking. Then again, if you see, likewise the printing press and the making of books and the use of the vernacular language inevitably changed the culture of the people and had direct effect on the scientific revolution. If you see the whole idea of what you call the scientific revolution, commercial revolution, and French revolution, they are also, this has happened what you call the phase of enlightenment. It's also very connected with each other, and owing to that, shift of paradigm is also happening. Again, Johann Gutenberg's invention of the 1440s, a movable type, was the agent of a change. And again, with the invention of the printing press, books became readily available, smaller and easier to handle and cheap to purchase. The masses of the people acquired direct access to the scriptures. Attitudes began to change as the people were relieved from the church dominations. If you see one hand, you see the printing press and as well as the steam engine, many scientific developments, scientific discoveries has also encouraged, in a sense, for shift of paradigm, shift of worldview from one place to other. Again, similarly, the agent of change are driving a new paradigm shift today. We have a number of agents of change. I have already talked about technology is one of the important agents of social change now. The sign are all around us. For example, the introduction of the personal computer. Computer is another important determinant for us, and the internet have impacted both personal and business environment and is for the catalyst for the paradigm shift. You see, the introduction of the technology, what you call the internet, it's a different kind of medium we have right now, and it's absolutely mediating many of our social relationships. Computer and as well as the internet. It's through that introduction of this particular what you call the artifacts, technological artifacts, owing to this, some kind of paradigm shift is also occurring, and we are shifting from mechanistic manufacturing industrial society to an organic service-based society. So that we can see that it's a kind of, when I'm talking about shifting of paradigm is happening, that's mechanistic manufacturing industrial society to organic service-based information-centered society, and increases in technology will continue to impact globally, and change is inevitable. So owing to that, some kind of transformation is also happening. Now it's information is very is a important concept for us, important idea for us. It's also commodity for us. So we are also trying to understand not on the basis of the mechanistic manufacturing idea. We have an idea of knowledge. We have an idea of information, so on and so forth. Then again, if you see the Thomas Kuhnian idea, he argues, and I state, awareness is prerequisite to all acceptable change of theory. When you're talking about different kind of paradigm shift from one place to other place, the different shift of the world view and shift of the ideas and so on and so forth, Kuhn argues that the awareness is a prerequisite to acceptable change. When you're trying to accepting some kind of change, the awareness is also very important to accept the change of theory. It all begins in the mind of the people. He argues that all it begins what we perceive, whether normal or metanormal, conscious or unconscious, are subject to the limitations and distortions produced by the own inherited and socially conditional nature. However, we are not restricted by this, for we can change. We are moving at an accelerated rate of speed, and our state of consciousness is transforming and transcending. Many are awakening as our conscious awareness expand. So what basically what is arguing that it's kind of awareness is a very important. One can say it's a popularization of particular ideas, particular concept. When you're talking about shift of paradigm from one place to another place, you are also creating an awareness. This is very important for a change, for a development of another kind of consciousness. So then again, when talking about this, if you analyze the contemporary scenario, the present scenario, the today's world, the contemporary world, and then we are also trying to contextualize the paradigm shift in this contemporary period. As you know that we live in a dynamic and changing times, and it's absolutely dynamic world. Within a few fraction, new kind of development is happening, new kind of innovations is happening, whether it is a technological innovation, whether it is a scientific innovation, like for instance, development in the IT, information technology sector, development in the health sector, many things is happening simultaneously. So that means we are living in a very dynamic and changing times. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. We don't know what kind of technologies will come tomorrow, what kind of paradigm shift will occur. So this is also a phase of what we call the push and pull factor, and as we are also talking about the centripetal and as well as the centrifugal forces of tribalism and globalism are creating what we called Harold Isaacs called the paradox of our time. Isaacs is a very contemporary sociologist and a social scientist. He is extensively arguing, talking about the present day time. And if you see, the present context is absolutely, it's the idea of the push and pull factor, and as well as the centripetal and centrifugal forces. When we're talking about the push and pull factor, let's talk about example. Certain elements or certain forces are there which is pushing us from one place to other place. Take an example of the migration. Through this migration, people are displaced from the one particular region to the other particular region, whether for a particular betterment or for opportunities or for any kind of what we call the pressure in a sense, either for the idea of the displacement which is happening many, if in India all displacement is also, we can say it's a kind of push factor, and also people are migrating from one region to other region. It's not from the it's not happening regionally, it's also happening nationally, it's also happening globally. So the idea is the push and push factor is not when we're talking about, is not talking about in a local level, but rather we are talking in a global way. It's from region to the national level, regional level, to the national level, to the international level. And centripetal forces and centrifugal, some forces are attracting us and some forces are also rejecting us. A whole idea what is talking of the tribalism and the globalism. On one hand we have a idea of the globalization, and we have talking about tribalism. When we're talking about the tribalism, and we are connecting with the Harold's idea of the paradox of the time, he argues that in his book Ideals of the Tribe, he argues that, and I quote, "The fragmentation of human society is a pervasive fact of human affairs and always has been. It is persist and increase in our own time as part of ironic, painful and dangerous paradox. The more global our science and technology, the more tribal our politics, the more universal our system of communication, the less we know what to communicate, the closer we get to other planets, the less able we become to lead the tolerable existence in our own, the more it becomes apparent that human beings cannot decently survive with their separatedness. The more separate they become in the face of even more urgent need to pool the world's resources and powers, human society is splitting itself into the smaller and smaller fragments." This argument is a very interesting, if you see, if you want to understand the present day contradictions, if you want to understand the present day problems, if you want to understand present day issues right now, and he has, interestingly, he's talking about the ironic, painful and dangerous paradox in one hand. He's also talking about global and the more global and science and technology, the more tribal our politics, the more universal our system of communication, less we know about to communicate, and closer we get to other planet, less we became to lead tolerable existence in our society. It's a now we're talking about, it's a absolutely chaotic, it's a kind of disorder in the disjunction. And and again, if you analyze that, in again the idea of the what you call the paradigm shift, you see that's the society, we have an idea 1850 to 1950 is it's 100 years of now. We can say we can go ahead to the 2050. Now we have a vision for 2050, 2020 and 30. See, the society is absolutely, here is the agrarian society in 18, and then transforming from the paradigm shift is occurring agrarian to industrial to information. The economy is from agriculture and manufacturing to the present day service, and then again wartime, nature, clock and flexi time. The trade centers to Mediterranean to Atlantic, the Pacific shifted to the that thing. Forms of tribe, town to technopolis we have. In the travel we have a walking, driving to the flying. Familial, national, global, when you're talking about worldview. Orientation, we have a past, present, now, right now we're talking about fusion. In this way, some kind of paradigm shift is occurring. Now let's talk about what are the new sociological paradigm. We'll discuss about that new sociological paradigm within our sociological discipline. The new sociological paradigm is created on the complexity of new assumptions and knowledge, but we have already discussed some of these ideas, and the openness of the history, entropic comprehension of the world, danger of the planet destruction, the beginning of an era of the great cultural transformations, the mutual performance of the social process of continuity and discontinuity, the necessity of the free human actions, development, the appearance of the new agents of social changes, the beginning of the social movement, and outset of the new factors of social dynamics. These are the important ingredients when we're talking about new social paradigm. Alongside with that, the new sociological paradigm originally originates from the critical and creative mediation of previous system of thought of the science of sociology. So we are not rejecting the previous idea of sociological thought. We are also including that. So this is a kind of what you call, one can say it's also influenced by that kind of old idea. The first step we are trying to understand is that the large revitalization of sociology lies then in the synthesis and supplementation of the mutually exclusively streams, the modern system of the theory, critical theories of society, theories of radical change, as well as in the apprehension of the social phenomena as a phenomena with certain meaning. So we can say it's interconnected with each other. So then again, let's talk about the emerging paradigm. And emerging paradigm, this is also an important part of the new, what you call sociological paradigm. And an emerging paradigm, which many sociologists have highlighted, that's the importance of new flow of migration. What we were talking about, what you call that the push and pull factor, and growing tension between social democratic and neoliberal ideology, and new security challenges, the rise of new and improved media of communication, and development in the late capitalism from a background within the sociology itself. Influential developments includes that the cultural turns, number one, and pay attention not only to the social relations and social structure, but also to the culture as a social force in its own right, and within that a growing interest in the material culture and bodily and emotionally, bodily and emotional. So in a sense, you can see when talking about the emerging paradigm, the net flow of migration is an important factor, and growing tension between the social democrats and neoliberal ideology, as well as new security challenges, whatever you have, surveillance can you have, the privacy, and as well as the rise of improved media of communication, development of the late capitalism and development of the communication, so and so forth. And here then the first important determinant for us is the cultural turn, which pays attention not only to the social relations and social structure, but also the culture as a force in its own right. The second, number two, is the growing interest in globalization, and with it in the refusal or consider society as a necessary continuous with national boundaries, or to focus on development at the national level. So the idea of the interconnectedness, idea of the boundary. Then the sixth is the connected interest in both new and speeded of The idea is speeded up in a sense when we're talking about the global flow of communication, which is the most important aspect of emerging new paradigms. What we call the global flow of communication and of flow of capital and flow of image, flow of people. John Murray is talking about the flow of image, flow of people. This is an important paradigm when you're talking of emerging paradigm. And again, the emerging paradigm expand the sociological stance both in the earlier paradigms by talking seriously structure and agency and culture and the mutual interaction between them. Now it's also talking about the mutual interaction in between the structure, agency and culture. Culture is also broadened to encompass not only ideas and text but images and material objects, space, symbols and bodies. These are the new development in this emerging paradigm. The idea is an important factor. Texts, it's also part of the communication studies. When we're talking about communication studies or new phase of communication, text is also very important for us. Images, material objects, space and notion, time, these are the very important developments within this emerging paradigm. And as well as it's the material symbol as well as the alternative to the culture as is combined inside to the academic discourse. And now we have a symbolic imaginaries, and those are the material culture and symbolic imaginaries. We have a nodes indicate dialectic relationship. We have a networks. We have a agent, and we have a material symbols. And through that, one of the interesting development which has happened in this emerging what we call paradigm is that the information revolution. The information revolution introduces a series of paradigm changes that implies shifting from the analytical model to system thinking. Now you have another, when we're talking about information revolution, we have a computer. What Manuel Castells is talking about, we have a computer, we have a networks, we have a specified system which is doing our own job. Doing a job in every sphere of life. And the system thinking acknowledges the intrinsic complexities of reality, and in addition to limiting itself to the way the different parts of the systems fits together, and as well as the system thinking also tackle issues pertaining to the evolution of systems over time and to the internalization of various subsystems within the systems. Moreover, the system thinking takes into account the interaction complex system and processes with their internal and external environments. So that is a kind of connection when we're talking about system. And in this particular we're talking about this paradigm. Many people are talking about the Daniel Bale, Masuda and Murray and Manuel Castells. They are arguing that within this paradigm, a society that organizes itself around knowledge in the interest of social control and the management of innovation and change. Now it's here the new idea has come of that idea of the management of innovation. Now the technocrats in one hand. We have another class has emerged what Daniel Bale is talking about, technocrats, and we have a different social control pattern we have. Masuda is also talking about a new type of society. We're talking about new type of paradigm, where the position of information and not material wealth is a driving force behind the transformation and development. If you're talking about the older paradigm, the Marxian paradigm, where the material wealth was important, but here the information, position of the information, which is a very important. This is another important, what you call the driving force behind the transformation and development development of the new kind of society, and where human intellectual creativity is very, very important. And again, if you see the Nick Murray is also talking about that the society where the information is used as an economic resource and the community harness exploits it, and behind it's all the industry developed with produces the necessary information. It's also all about now. If you will have a division, the class division will occur. That will occur on the basis of information, on the basis of knowledge, on the basis of the technology. And again, if you see, we have another Hungarian idea we have vertical national strategic informatics, the social structure based on the free creation, distribution, access and use of information and knowledge. The globalization of various field of life. So that means it's a kind of, it's a phase where it's a free distribution, free access of knowledge, use of information and knowledge. But many people, they have also criticized it. You know, you can't say it's a also free access and free utilization of information, but certain section of the society, they are controlling the information. Then again, most important, contributor to the network society or the information society or to this particular idea is that the Manuel Castells. He argues that the network society or this particular paradigm is in a society. If you want to understand in the contemporary society, he argues that network society is a society whose social structure is made of networks powered by the microelectronics. It's then again technology based information and communication technology. That means we have a microelectronics in one hand and as well as the ICT, information communication technology, which is the most important determinant of this, of this emerging paradigm, of this new paradigm. At the core of this technological change that unleashed the power of networks, that there was the transformation of information and communication technologies based on the microelectronics revolution that took shape in 1940s to the 50s, which was crystallized in after 70s. It constituted the foundation of new technological paradigm. What it's talking about is a new technological paradigm. This is the world of technology. It's a kind of shift of a particular paradigm to the another paradigm. This is a technological paradigm consolidated in the 1970s, mainly in the United States and rapidly diffused around the world. Sharing in what he called, I'm quoting that, he is arguing that it's all about information age. This is the idea of Manuel Castells. When we are quoting Manuel Castells, he's talking about, it's a kind of, technology is one of the important, determinant, what you call the technological paradigm. And if you want to understand the present day contemporary society and contemporary world, technology is one of the important determinant and important paradigm for us. And through technological paradigm, we can understand the present day society or the information society. So therefore, this is the society where we are talking about open knowledge is the energy for the 21st century. Then we have a open access, that's another idea. Then again we have it's a movement from the pre 1.0 nomads to the nomads. It's talking about nomads. It's a movement from the one phase to other. So that we can see when we're talking about the present century, when we're talking about a new technological paradigm, we have to understand the knowledge, idea of the knowledge and idea of the network and idea of the open access and different contradictions we have when we're talking about analyzing the contemporary society. So in a concluding remark, we can in my conclusion, I would put my argument over is that, see, broadly we can see it's a kind of one hand we have a different kind of paradigm in sociology where we are trying to understand different paradigms, starting from what we call the structural functionalism to Marxism to the interactionism. Then what kind of, in which way different kind of paradigm shift is occurring on the basis of the time, space, and different conditions. And now we are in a phase where the technology is one of the important determinant for us, what you call the technological paradigm. So here I'll conclude my lecture. Thank you very much.
So what we find that there are certain factors that lead one stage to another stage.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's conflicting, sometimes cooperation, as you also say, in a dialectical mode of transformation or evolution. So now when we see the new age, like technology dominant driven society, so what kind of conflict and what kind of consensus you find that will unfold in coming years?
Yeah. So it's a very interesting question. In the present day, when we are talking about the present day society, essentially we are talking about technological paradigm. Manuel Castells is talking about, and we are talking about him. Technology is one of the important, and technological paradigm one of the important issue for us. So now the people, those who are controlling the technology, they are the superior in a sense. They are superior in a sense. Indirectly, they are also controlling many things. If you are controlling the technology, if you have technology potential, or if you have a strong human resource, yeah, you are also controlling the knowledge. Though this is a knowledge society, we have a knowledge have and knowledge have nots. That we have a contradiction and conflict will occur on the basis of the knowledge and information. So if you have a strong knowledge worker in one hand and you don't have a knowledge worker in other, because if you are knowledgeous, if you have a strong knowledge, you have a strong information, if you have strong technological power, you will be the superior. You take example all the Western countries, particularly the European countries in America, and Daniel Bailey is talking about technocrats, technologically superior people.
Fine.
Yeah.
So, well, friends, as we heard that technology is dominating and will dominate in coming years also. So, we'll try to understand this society, popularly known as network society, in tomorrow's lecture. And with this word, we conclude the lecture. I thank all of you for watching the lecture. And on your behalf, I thank Dr. Manoj Jena for giving such a wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.